and welcome back to my channel. My name is Juditha, and on this channel we talk about all things mindset. We talk about your fears, your insecurities, your doubts, all of the things that go into creating your dream life, because I'm trying to do the same thing. So trust me when I say that I get it. Okay, today we're going to talk about like the different seasons of life, like when you have big goals, when you're creating your dream life, just the different seasons that you'll probably be experiencing, just so that you're able to identify and say, you know what, this feels like exactly where I am. And then maybe you can start to have more patience and understanding with where you are and kind of just like accept it and become more content with it. I think that there's three main seasons that we all go through, right? There's the tending the soil, planting the seed, and then there's the harvest. Any point in your life, you're either in one of those three seasons. Not to say that if you're in one season, you can't be experiencing the other, but usually one season is more dominant. The first thing I want you to know is that your life, wherever you are, the goals that you have, the things that you're going through right now, there's a reason for it. Life feels easier. Life gets better when you can be okay with where you are, when you can have patience for where you are, when you can be grateful for where you are, no matter what it looks like. So the first season we're going to talk about, the first season is tending the soil. And this is exactly what it sounds like. Before you plant anything, you know that you have to make sure the soil is almost in perfect condition to grow whatever it is you're about to plant, right? So what that looks like for you, what that looks like for your mind is, let's say you have a goal, right? One of the first things that you can start to do to tend to the soil is to work on your mindset, is to work on yourself, work on your fears, your insecurities. And this isn't just isolated to one season. Like throughout every season, you're always going to be working on these things, but particularly when you're starting something, tending to the soil, like getting yourself ready to do it, working on your belief in your ability to do it is a part of the plan, right? It's a part of one of the seasons that you're going to be in. And for me, what this looked like was in the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, when I graduated from college and I was like, you know what? I want to have my own business. I'm just not going to be happy working for somebody for the rest of my life. Like I knew it immediately. And so what that looked like for me was I started to learn about myself, right? I became more self-aware. I started to, I don't know, I started to crave to be this other version of myself that I know could do anything, could be anything, right? Could understand people, could understand myself, could understand my emotions. Like, I just had this desire. It just came out of me and I just wanted to be the best me. Like, as cliche as that sounds, I really just wanted to be the best me that I could be. And I know that part of that was because I was dating my partner, who I'm still dating now. And just being in a long-term relationship, for me, it made me just question like a lot of things. It made me question who I was being. It made me question why I was triggered with certain things. So that paired with the fact that I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and I just didn't know how to be one, I had to learn like, okay, what are entrepreneurs like? How do entrepreneurs think? And I just started to prepare myself for that journey by learning about myself, by learning about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Another thing is I became very, very spiritual at one point, and I still am, but I could really just remember like I don't know, spirituality just really started calling to me. And I think it's because like when you feel lost, when you feel confused, it's like a security blanket to have your spirituality, right? It's the same thing for people who are religious. Like it's like a security blanket. It feels good to know that you're not doing things alone. And I think that's why during that time I really leaned into my spirituality, because before then I definitely believed in God, but I never had like a religious practice. I never had like a spiritual practice. I never had such a close relationship with God that I feel like I have now, where I basically wake up and I pray, have a conversation with God every day, like throughout the day, multiple times a day. And I think it was just different for me in college. It was just different. But that was me. That was me tending the soil, like becoming more spiritual, learning about who I really am, learning about the ego. Oh, I remember one of the first books I read that really opened my eyes to these different parts these different parts of me and just of us as human beings. It was called Third Eye Awakening, and it was like an ebook on my phone, right? And I remember I'd be at work at my hostess job, just like scrolling on my phone, reading this book. And I don't know, this book just made me believe that there was something else, like that I wasn't just a human and I wasn't just having experiences and I wasn't just living this life. Like I was a spirit. I wanted to be here. My soul wanted to be here. I wanted to learn these lessons. I wanted to go through these trials and tribulations. Like I just started learning all these things, and it helped to reassure me that life doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't. We often we make it hard with our thoughts, with our feelings, with our emotions, and that's just what comes with being human, right? And I can accept that, or at least I can accept that now, right? Before it didn't feel that way. I felt like I was just a human and I was just living a life. I was just very much on autopilot, but all of this goes into tending the soil. Like, this is what tending the soil looked like for me in the beginning. It's not to say that I'm not still tending the soil, because I still am. Like, every day I have to remind myself of who I am. Every day I have to make sure that I'm being patient. Every day I have to have these conversations with God, where I ask for reassurance that, I'm going to be okay and all these things. But that is essentially what it looks like when you're planting the soil. Okay, so you might be in that state right now where you have a goal, you have a dream, you have a wish, there's things that you want to do, and maybe you feel afraid, right? Maybe you feel uncertain. Maybe you're not sure where to start. This is where you have to give your brain the reassurance that it needs to be able to give you the information that you need, right? Maybe you need to lean on your faith more. Just whatever it takes. Just remember that you have the opportunity to make life easier. It doesn't matter what reality is showing you, right? As hard as it can be sometimes, you always have a choice to try to be okay with what is. Okay, so that is tending the soil. So let's talk about the next season that you could be in, which is planting the seed, right? Planting the seed, exactly what it sounds like. This is when you actually start to take steps. This is when you start to take consistent action. This is when you say, this is my goal, and even though I'm afraid, I'm willing to try. Even though I'm uncertain, I'm willing to try. Even though I don't know if this is the right answer, I'm willing to try, right? This is what planting the seed is when you start to lay the steps down, when you start to build a foundation on whatever it is that you want to do, right? Now, primarily my channel is about, of course, creating your dream life. This is where you take the action. This is where you fuck around and find out, right? This is where you say, like, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but intuitively I feel led here. And when you're planting the seed, like, this is also where you're gonna have to continue to tend to the soil, right? Just like when you plant something, you still have to water it, right? So when you set out to do something, your brain is gonna want to confuse you. Your brain is gonna want to scare you, for the simple fact that it just wants to keep you safe. So this is also the season that you're gonna have to come up against a lot of doubt, a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of insecurities, right? This is where you're gonna have to continue to work on your confidence. This is what planting the seed looks like, right? It looks like trying and failing and trying and failing, and also being able to reframe every failure as just an opportunity to learn and grow. So when you're in this season, this is when you're actually committed to taking consistent, imperfect action. Okay, that's what it looks like when you're planting the seed. And now the last season is the harvest. Like, this is what everybody wants. Like, this is why we put in all that work. This is why we tend to the soil. This is why we plant the seed, is because we want to reap the rewards of everything that we've been working on, right? Everything that we've been putting in, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the energy, the effort. Like, that's what the harvest is. The harvest is obviously the product of you tending to the soil. It's a product of you planting the seed. So planting the seed is going to be the season that you're probably in the longest, right? And while you're planting the seed, you're still going to be tending to the soil. So those two is probably the majority of what life will look like. And then the harvest, like, of course, that's where you get the results that you want. But the reason why the harvest only lasts for so long is because once you harvest the reward from the work that you've been putting in our humanness, we are set up to always desire more, desire something else, to want to expand. So you are going to be consistently in this cycle where you are tending to the soil, then you're planting the seed, and then you're harvesting, and then it just starts over and over and over and over again. And just to give y'all a visual example of what planting the seed and harvesting can look like, I'll give y'all an example from my own life, right? So in my business, I would say planting the seed is everything that I'm doing now. Like, I post consistently. I post on TikTok, I post on YouTube, I post on Instagram. I post consistently. That's me planting the seed. I also learn from my mistakes. I learn from, okay, what worked last month and what didn't. Like, that is me planting the seed. And then me tending to the soil is me being able to stay out of imposter syndrome, right? It's me not comparing myself to others as I'm doing this, right? Because the other day, I literally had a little mini anxiety attack because I started comparing myself to somebody else, and I had to pull myself out of that. Like, I had to realize that, you know what? She is where she is. I am where I am. I'm in this season and I'm okay with it. Like, when I'm not comparing myself to anybody else, I'm totally happy, totally fine, and content with where I am. So keep that in mind too. You only ever feel inferior when you start to compare yourself to somebody else. Just focus on yourself, on your own life, focus on what makes you happy right now, and know that that is enough. Okay. So anyways, that's what planting the seed looks like for me. And then the harvest is when I get a new client, right? It's when I host a group challenge and people sign up, right? That's the harvest. But like I said, once you harvest the reward, you start over again, right? Because even though I'm harvesting, I have to keep going back and planting the seed and harvesting and tending to the soil. So it's just kind of like a cycle. The reason why I think it's important for you to just be aware of what season that you're in is because then you could like not be so hard on yourself. Like if you're just in the beginning phase of anything and you are having a hard time believing in yourself, maybe you could just have a little bit more patience, because you're like, you know what, in this season that I'm in, I have to tend to the soil. Like I have to work on believing in myself. I have to work on my self-worth. Like I have to work on my confidence, and that's okay. If you're in the season of planting the seed, you can say to yourself, you know what, this is my season where I'm putting the work in. This is my season where I'm putting in the effort. This is my season where I'm doing things I've never had to do before. So of course I'm going to come up against my biggest enemy, right? My inner critic, that voice that's telling me that I can't, or that I shouldn't, or that all of these things can go wrong, right? You can have patience when you're there. And of course, when you're harvesting, you can be grateful for where you are now and just know that more goals are going to come. You're going to want to expand. You're going to want more things. Just know that every season of your life serves a purpose. Like for me right now, I definitely feel like I'm again in that like planting the seed type of season. And I don't know if it's also just because it's like winter time and it's more so like, I don't know, this season kind of gives off the vibe of like slow down, take it easy, learn, you know what I mean? Be around family, focus on love, focus on just all those things. But I definitely feel like I'm in the planting the seed, and 2025, I feel like that's going to be, that whole year is just going to be like a harvest year for me, because I have so many plans. So every season that you're in, it serves a purpose. Be patient with yourself and be okay with where you are. That is it for today's video. I hope this was helpful. I hope you bloomed today. Make sure that you like, you comment, you subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.